Well, hello everybody. Sorry, let me get this camera straight. Awful glad to see you, Mr. Mack here. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about two things. One is a little something called point of view, and the other is something called perspective. Both of these have to do with reading. Both of these also have to do with writing, and they're fairly important. One is a little more easy to detect. The other one, you gotta kind of get a little deeper. You'll see what I mean. First one I want to talk about is point of view. Point of view. Chances are real good you've already heard this. You probably know what it is, and you may even remember what it is. Some of you might have it's right on the tip of your tongue. That happens to me a lot too. Point of view. Tonight I'm going to teach you about two kinds of point of view. Point of view is who is telling the story. Any story that you read, you can ask yourself, who is telling the story? It's what I'm going to teach you is first person and third person. First person point of view, a character within the story tells of his or her own experiences and thoughts. So an actual character in the story is telling us their story. And you know that because of words, these pronouns down here, words like I and me and my and mine and we and our. I went down to the fishing hole and I went swimming with my best friend. Well, we can tell right away that's first person point of view because that character is telling us what they did. So that's first person. Easy enough. You look for these pronouns. If you open a book, I don't care how big and thick, I don't care how small, and the first sentence says, I went to, right away you know it is first person point of view. I keep looking here. You know it's first person point of view if it starts out with I. So that's first person. Third person point of view is when there's this narrator telling the story. The narrator's not in the story. They're telling the story. Third person point of view is the story is being told by a narrator outside the story. And in this kind of a story, the narrator, just like someone would be telling you a story, using pronouns like this, like he, like she, like it, like they, like them. You open a book and it starts out with, he went down to the river with his fishing pole. Right away, you know that is third person point of view. He went down to the river with his fishing pole. Those are pronouns that are a dead giveaway for third person, just as these pronouns are a dead giveaway for first person. You come across a question, it gives you a passage, and it asks you what point of view. Look for the pronouns. If it starts off where you see the word I or my, it's first person, because the character's telling us the story. If you see he went, she went, they went, it's third person. It's that simple. Let me show you. First person story. And I want you to notice the pronouns that are underlined. Dead giveaway for a first person story. I walked home from school today with my friends. We stopped for ice cream. I had vanilla. It's my favorite. When I got up this morning, I brushed my teeth. Well, this author needs to add a little bit more and beat this up. These are kind of choppy sentences, but that's beside the point. This is easily first person point of view. Look at all of those I and my and me. This character is telling us the story. Third person. That's the sloppy side. Third person. Ted plays on a baseball team. He loves to play with his team. He has a game next week. His coach thinks he's a good baseball player. Well, good enough story, but it's definitely being told by a narrator, someone who's not in the story. And look at the pronouns that I underline. He, his, he's. Look at this contraction down there. He's. When they kind of married together, they conjugated he and is. Awesome. So, third person, first person. Easy. Piece of cake. Now that is first person and third person. I think that's kind of straightforward. You look for those pronouns and you're in good shape. Perspective, that's something you got to get a little deeper into. I mean, and it's really all about inference, and we've already covered inference. You got to use your own intelligence and mix it in with what's happening in the story. And really, there's two kinds of perspective. You've got author's perspective. Why did the author write this? For what reason? Every author that's ever written anything, whether it's fiction, made up stuff, or nonfiction, the factual stuff, there's a reason why the author wrote it. And a lot of times as you're reading, you can get the author's perspective rather, kind of quickly. You stick with the reading and you keep reading it, and you can get a feel for the author's perspective. And all that is how the author feels about the topic. Sometimes you can tell if the author is for something or against something, especially if it's nonfiction. If somebody's writing an article about pollution and our world being destroyed by carbon monoxide and too many cars and factories belching smoke into the air and all that, then you're going to have a strong feeling. You know how the author is going to feel about air pollution, right? How the author feels about pollution, right? That he's against it. That's easy, right? Let me show you what I mean here. I'm going to read you two stories, or you're going to read with me. And the first one, they're both about snakes. So you've got two authors writing two stories about snakes. Now, not everybody in the world can have the same opinion about snakes. I hate snakes, but that's my opinion. So anyway, here we go. This is author number one, Snakes, Yuck. Now, right away, just by that title, you get a good feeling how the author feels about snakes. Snakes are probably the most frightening creatures on earth. They are cold-blooded, and they slither everywhere they go. That's author number one. Author number two. Snakes are our friends. Well, you can tell by the title of this one how this author feels too, can't you? Wherever it is warm, you will find snakes. They are not slimy like people think. Some have beautiful scales. Snakes are more afraid of you than you are of them. Two stories, both about snakes, both different perspectives. Perspectives. You know how this author feels. This author hates snakes. This author doesn't. It's very simple. You just infer, you use it. I mean, this author didn't come out and say, I hate snakes, they're disgusting, blah, blah, blah. But the author showed us. And same with this author. The author never said, I love snakes. But we can infer it. We can figure it out, right? So sometimes you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a test. You're going to have a bit of classwork, and it's going to ask you to read two different passages. And it's going to ask you a lot of things. It might ask you to compare and contrast. It might ask you this. It might ask you that. It might also ask you, what is the author's perspective? How, by reading these two, could you write a paper? I mean, it would be nice if the stories were longer, but if reading these two, you could write a paper and using details from this text, tell me what is the author's point of view? How do they differ? How are they the same? Whatever. That's author's perspective. Character perspective, that's something too that you have to be able to infer. You got to use what you know. And as you're reading, you can get a real feel for how characters feel about certain things. Just like the author's perspective. Characters can have opinions and feelings about things too. Character perspective. How characters feel about something or someone, anything at all in a story. Probably most of you read the book Wonder. Every single chapter is of a different perspective. When Augie first starts talking, the main character of Wonder, it's all about the world around him and him in it. Every other character, Jack, Via, Miranda, Julian, it's all about their world with Augie in it. Each one has a different perspective on the world around them and Augie. That's what makes that book so awesome. Each chapter is of a different perspective. Anybody read Esperanza Rising? Great story. Historical fiction. It's a great book. But you have this young lady who came from, it's a riches to rags. Instead of rags to riches, it's a riches to rags story, where she lost everything. Her father was killed, and she lost everything. And she had grown up rich with servants, and she suddenly was thrust into a world of poverty and having to work and all of that. She had a lot to learn, but Esperanza's perspective in the beginning on the world was different. Other characters like Miguel, they lived in the same world, they lived in the same place, but their perspectives were different, how they viewed the world. Miguel was not rich. Miguel never was rich. Miguel never was poor and then became rich. Miguel was poor and he stayed poor. Esperanza was rich and then became poor. So, character perspectives are important too. You'll be asked questions about that as well, how characters feel about this or their perspective. So, really, ladies and gents, that's about it. Point of view and perspective. Two different things, but they all have to do with the story. And, that's that for that. Take care. I hope this helps. Come back to it if you need it, if you come across any questions at all on any activities or assignments that you do. Take care. Let me get my finger on the button here. Have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.